record it or
Oh,
not?
Yeah. Why not, right? Why would we exclude? James, do you mind offering the opening prayer then?
That's no problem at all.
Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet together as a class and to have our instructor here with us. We pray at this time that we might be able to learn one from another and be able to have good conversation about the case study. We pray that we might be inspired by thy spirit and be able to remember the things that we learn and be able to apply them in our lives. Father, we pray for the members that aren't here, that they might be safe and be able to learn from our conversation and be able to apply the principles that we talk about, and that we might continually strive to be better people and more like thy Son. And these things we ask and pray in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, James. That was a beautiful prayer. I appreciate that. So, anyways, welcome, or thank you. Let me just say thank you for having me in your meeting today. This is actually my favorite part of the class, when we get to connect. And so, unfortunately, those times are few. Usually it's about twice a semester, but I enjoy it. I hope you guys have been so far getting a lot out of your discussions, and hopefully after discussion today, you'll find that it was well worth your time. So, but personally, I enjoy it, and I think a lot of learning takes place here. So, well, let's just jump right into it. And so, with this case, I take a little different approach. So, just to get started, I want to do an exercise, and if you all have something to write with or on your phone or what have you, what I'd like to do is write down who you selected, or who you would select out of all the candidates, and write one reason why you would select them, and then also write one reason, maybe one challenge they would have. I think it was clear in the case, there was no perfect candidate, right? Everyone had some kind of a wart on them, which again, that's my experience. There's never the perfect candidate. So write down who your choice would be. One good thing about them or why you selected them, and then one challenge or one issue they have. Then, on your honor, we're going to go through everyone's answer. And if you're second or third, no cheating. You can't change your answer if the person before you gives a good explanation that selected somebody different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
So again, write it down. The pen maybe, so you can't erase it. One good thing and one challenge, and then just kind of look up or the eye sign that you're done, and just ask each of the three of you to explain your choice.
I just didn't get the last part. So if someone, if I'm second, then I can or can't. I can or cannot change my.
You cannot change. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the point of the exercise is, I want you to sell me or, show me why you selected who you did.
Okay.
And, sometimes when you hear other people's input, you might want to change your mind. But the point of the exercise is to justify why you selected them. Naturally, afterwards, we'll have more time to discuss the pros and cons of each candidate. But this is a good way to get
similar
started.
to the same case study that we already turned into, the write-up?
Yeah, because I'm sure you guys made a recommendation there, right? So if it's the same, great. If not, that's fine too. Maybe you changed your mind since then. But hopefully that makes sense.
My computer's trying to restart itself because it's got an update.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop it real quick.
All right. Anybody need more time? Okay.
I'm almost done.
All right. Okay. Go ahead, James. Just let me know when you're done.
Okay. Let's see. All right, I think I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Who'd like to be the brave soul to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Who
James.
said that? Okay. So I'm actually kind of torn between two people, but out of the people that Stephen interviewed, I would actually choose Sonia. So although Sonia is considered a star, she has a lot less large firm experience, which puts her in a position of teachability. She proves to be innovative and knows how to work well with the team in order to be successful. So I would imagine she'd fit in really well with RHS and their culture. And and the reason why I say she's innovative is she's able to get things done without having to do a lot of traveling. And she's still really successful in that. And she's written some really, really good papers that are for the global market. So I feel like that's something that would help RHS expand further than just domestic, but go globally as well. But honestly, I would say if they didn't choose any of the four, I would definitely go with Rena, because Rena seems to be proving herself, and you can create a star out of Rena better than you can probably create a star out of the other four. So.
Okay. What about with Sonia? What any drawbacks?
So I think the biggest drawbacks with Sonia is that she does want to try to work from home, and that would definitely affect her team relationships. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to have really affected her relationship with her team at her current location, and it seems like she's working with quite a few more people as well, which means she could be just as good or even better working with less people. So
good. Okay, great. All right. Who's next?
Okay, okay. So I chose Seth Horkham, because he works for Jefferson's Brothers, and the culture at their company is pretty much like that of RSH. He has already covered power chip, so he's going to be able to take those duties right away. And his number 5 in the II's list. I think the drawback is that he may be a little more expensive than Rena or Sonia. And Rena would be my second option, because I think that giving her a promotion would be a good thing to show other people of the company that they have the opportunity to grow there. And Rena and other people, other junior analysts, might be less likely to move away from the company in the future if she gets a promotion right now.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Jackson. Laren, last but not least.
All right. So the person I chose was Rena. So I thought all of the interviews and stuff like that he did beforehand, and it's kind of a waste of time when they had I think their star right there in their office with them. And the reason I picked Rena is because she's already had 3 years of experience with the company, so she already knows kind of what's expected of her on how to do things. And with that too, she had direct experience under Peter, so she kind of already has a head start on the position and what is expected of her with that position. She already adapts to the culture of RSH. She knows all of that. So I think that's also really good because she doesn't have to adapt to anything. She's shown her loyalty to the company during her 3 years there, and she was always eager to improve. And so that shows good things in the long run. She's always eager to improve. She'll want to maximize what she can with the company. The only drawback that I would have with her, I guess there's a couple, is her inexperience in a way. She has an inexperience in that leadership position or at that higher position. She asks for advice from other senior analysts. And so she's shown not to, maybe be a very effective leader as of now. And then the learning curve that she would take from jumping from that position. But I think both of those are things that can be fixed sooner rather than later. And then once they are fixed, she's the future star.
Sure. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I think you all made some strong points, why you decided on who you did and, be some of the challenges they might have. Interesting that you all chose someone different, as your first choice, but two of you had Rena as your second choice. So clearly, Rena was right there, right? At least, the three of you.
Can I say one thing about Rena?
Sure.
So I would be, if I were Stephen, I would be kind of worried because, as I understood, John McCare would be her boss, and he didn't want her. So I would be kind of afraid of what would happen to my relationship with John McCare.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another thing too, is it did say that Rena was kind of an introvert as well, and that she was just like slightly coming out of her shell, and so that's something else that would kind of make me a little nervous. But
so, James, do you think an introvert would have a difficult time in this position?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about what an analyst actually does, but from what I understand from the reading is it's a lot of intercommunication between your team and between the different production, or I guess resources that you would be going to the different companies and stuff like that. But sorry.
That's okay.
This happens every single time. 1 second. I'm just gonna close.
Don't worry about it.
Real quick. My dog. Here's the dog next door playing with a squeaky toy, and she's jealous. All right, I guess that didn't necessarily work. Where was I? I'm sorry.
I think you're talking about
it does seem Yeah, so it does seem like it's kind of a big inner, I guess a lot of communication is involved. And if you're an introvert, I feel like that would be very difficult for you. But at the same time, it did say that she was, outside of the fact that she was an introvert, she was doing really well in covering Peter's position. And I think, although people are introverts, I think sometimes they actually do have the ability to come out of their shell still and become extroverts. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a complete no for me.
Mm-hmm.
But,
okay. Anyone, after hearing your teammates, anyone change your mind or have a different outlook on elected?
Well, with my second choices, I probably would have picked. I mean, I can't really decide between my second choices. It would have been either Seth or Sonia, as they both stated. The only thing I had with Seth is he left. He left a previous company that he worked there for a long time, and so I'm assuming that money was involved. And so if he was given another opportunity within a year with another company after he showed himself with RSH, that he would be a threat that he would leave the company if he wasn't under a contract or anything like that. And so, I mean, the thing I questioned about Seth was his loyalty, future loyalty to the company. And then with Sonia, I feel like she would have been a great fit, but the only thing is just time when she's raising two kids at home and didn't have the ability to travel if needed. And so I think that was a big problem with her, because if that position entails traveling, she wouldn't be able to. She wouldn't be able to give all of her time to the company because of her kids that she has to raise as well.
I would be afraid of moving Sonia because she sounds pretty stable where she is, and I don't know, she's a mother of two kids. I wouldn't want to interfere with their lives, so I would be kind of afraid of moving her. And about Seth, I think yes, there is money involved, but his main problem seems like recognition, like nobody patting his back and saying that he's doing a great job. Nobody telling him that now you're a senior analyst and for what all that you've been doing. So I don't think that he would move just because of money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know though, because the thing about Seth though is he let his work become such an overwhelming factor of his life that he was in a divorce because of it. And so, I mean, he left his family because of work. And I don't know if that's the kind of person I necessarily want in my company. I mean, although it does show great dedication to the company, it also shows too much desire for a higher dollar amount. And so if somebody were to come at him and say, hey, I can give you $5,000 more a year for you to come work for me, like, you never know. And I think even in the interview, he asked, I think Steven even asked him, like, what kind of guarantee do I have for you to stay with me? And he said, there's not really any guarantee. I mean, you seem like a good company to work for, and that's what I want to work for, but it didn't seem very stable to me. But I think that family relationship that Sonia has is actually a really good motivation for her to stay with the company, because it's something that she's going to want to keep for a long time rather than keep jumping around. She wants security that's going to protect her and her kids. So that's actually why I liked Sonia. And I actually like David Hughes because of that too. Although, yeah, he missed like a big announcement for like a new semiconductor product, but like he was spending time with the people that matters. So.
No, good points. So I'm just going to put my HR hat on for a moment. I mean, I am an HR person, but I'm just gonna put that hat on for a bit and just ask the question. Yes, Sonia. I'm getting Sonia and Rita. So Sonia is the one with the family, the kids obligation. Do we need to be careful to use that as a data point to determine whether we bring her on or not?
From an HR standpoint, that's
Yeah.
terrifying for you because.
Well, not for me, for you too.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the thing is, my wife works in HR, and she said if they catch wind of any reason when it comes to like family, sexual orientation, anything like that, if they can sue you for not hiring them. And it's crazy to me. So I mean, if we let her family be the reason why we don't hire her, then we're doing something highly illegal in a sense.
Isn't that the equal opportunity? What's the name of it? EEO.
Well, that's the body that enforces the labor laws. So you're talking about the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Oh
yeah, there are EEO laws that exist, but I mean the reality is you'd have to be pretty blatant to someone can sue, but it'd be your own fault. When I say your own, the hiring manager or the company, if they did that, and it'd have to be documented, and the person would have to prove that. My only point is, one, be careful of it, but I mean, I don't know if I would vocalize this, but as a hiring manager, in my mind, I would definitely consider that, if that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't come out and say it, and it's not so much that she has kids or she has a family to take care of. It comes down to her ability to perform the job.
Yeah.
Right? If that gets in the way, then I mean that's a real problem. And as the owner of a business, I mean that's something that you should reasonably expect that someone's going to perform to a certain level, whether they had children or not, were married or single, whatever color they were, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the only point I'm trying to make, because that's not something I think, you'd make a hiring decision over, but I wouldn't ignore it either, if I was a hiring manager. So that's the only point I wanted to make on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree, and I think reading the case study, it doesn't sound like her family really affected her ability to do the job. It just created she was innovative in being able to find ways to still spend time with her family, work outside of work without having to travel as much. I mean, even one of her coworkers, I think it was, said that she does a great job and she has great relationships with her clients, but only feels that she should travel more because it could increase the amount of relationships she has, or the amount of productivity she has. But the thing is she's doing fantastic with the way she's doing right now. So I mean, I don't necessarily see why it would need to change.
Sure, absolutely, that's a good point.
Well, to go with that, that was when she was working at a smaller firm. So if she makes that jump and works at RSH, a lot more time is going to be required of her to be able to do her job effectively. And so with all that extra time that she's going to have to spend on the job, is she still going to have enough time to tend and obligate for her family? It's a big jump from a smaller firm to a big firm, and so obviously a lot more time is going to be needed.
Yeah, but you have to remember too that she's doing the job that a senior analyst does, a junior analyst does, and an assistant does right now, because she doesn't have the staff to support her. So if she goes to RHS and has a full staff to support her, then who knows? I mean, she could blow us out of the water. So
I mean,
she's
like even with that, she still has to look over those other analysts and look over their work too. So I mean, it's still going to be a form of all three of those jobs, but I guess not as time consuming with those other jobs, just because there's other people doing the work. But she's always going to have to double check it and make sure they're doing their job correctly.
Yeah,
That's
I'll be right back. I've got to go help my grandma real quick.
Okay, go ahead. So, Larry, I think you bring up a good. So, how can you mitigate that, or how can you, like during the interview, right? I mean, to me, that's something I would bring out during the interview, right? Is look, you've been at some smaller places, which you've had a breadth, or you've had a wide variety of responsibilities. Because when you're someplace smaller, you kind of got to wear a number of hats, right?
Yeah.
A number of functions. So what would you do in the interview to, get a comfort level that, okay, he can handle being at a bigger place?
Well, I would just kind of just want to find out of how much time that she'd be able to obligate to the job. I mean, as the hiring person, or Steven, he basically knows how much time that Peter dedicated to the job every day, every week, every month, so and so, or and so on. And he basically knew how much Peter did spend starting off too. So if Sonia was able to obligate that much time towards the job of how much Peter spent, or even, I mean, possibly more starting off, because it's going to be, just fresh memory. It's fresh stuff right at the beginning, so it's going to take more time at the beginning. But if she's able to tell me that she can obligate this certain amount of time every day, week, and so on, then I think that would be a lot more comforting, knowing that.
Okay, that's good.
So you just have to kind of get her idea of how much time that she'd be able to spend with them to work and work under for her position.
Right. Good. I just one quick comment. Have any of you heard of behavioral interviewing?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. So something you could easily Google, but it's something recruiters, interviewers, it's considered a best practice. And the basic idea is, interviewing isn't an exact science, right? But the idea behind behavioral interviewing is that past performance is probably the most indicative of future behavior, future performance. Kind of like sounds like a 401k or a mutual fund pitch. And so going back to Sonia, so if you're doing practicing behavioral interviewing, you'd ask her a question that addresses, tell me a time about how you managed, how did you manage people below you, or how did you, how did you deal with a project that you had to spend a lot of time on? Because you're trying to find out if she can work at a larger place, right? So that's kind of what I was getting to, and that's actually I won't go into all the details, but you can Google it if you want. But it's just it's considered a best practice when you're interviewing, to find out what they've done in the past, to give you an idea if they can, do whatever you're asking them, behavior-wise. So, anyways, is the share button? So, have you guys seen the salaries for these individuals? Have you guys seen that yet?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna bring that up. So I think I just click on share, don't I?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I'm an old guy here, so bear with me. I know I've done this before, but okay. Let's see. Got it here. Okay, there it is. There's that. Hold on. Okay. Share. Okay. Okay.
So tell us who you voted for, right?
Huh?
I said you're going to tell us who you voted for, right?
Who I voted for? Yes, I am.
Okay.
I wanted
It's-
to know that too.
Yeah, when you said voted, I said, oh, you mean for, because, the elections are going on right now.
Oh,
Uh, wow. Okay. Anyway,
not
sorry.
quite what I meant.
Didn't mean
Sorry.
to- Can you guys see this now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see, you got the 5 candidates, their current salary, and then kind of using Rena as a baseline. David and Gerald, obviously at the top. Then you have Seth, Sonia, and Rena. So knowing what they made previously, did you guys change your mind or still sticking with who you?
I have another data that I would want to look at, and that's Peter's salary. Do you have that information?
Peter, you mean Peter Thompson, the one that left?
Yep.
I don't know. Forgive me, is it in the case?
No, it's not. I was just wondering because that should count too, because they were probably paying him as much as Seth or even more than him.
Yeah, I mean, my guess, I think you're right, Jackson, would have been somewhere between David and Seth is what they paid him.
That's what I thought. Maybe Gerald and Seth. I don't know. Maybe 1.1 or 1.2 million.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. Did you all read the Harvard Business Review about the risky business of hiring stars?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on again, they do point out some risks in hiring stars, and that there's compelling evidence that if you're a star at one place, you're not guaranteed you're going to be a star at another place for a number of reasons, right? Whether it's resources, different company cultures, so on and so forth. So, any thoughts on some of the risks involved, with, and again, perhaps we're talking about David, Gerald, and Seth, and again, most of them you don't. Again, let me go back to my notes.
Oh, there's Cassidy.
Hi guys. Sorry, I'm literally in the car right now. And I hope this works. Yeah, I have headphones in. I hope this works because I don't know. I'm using a hotspot, so we'll see.
Okay. Hi, who is that?
How long have you guys been on for?
About 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Good.
All right. So, any thoughts then on the article?
So for me, yeah, actually, that was one of the confirmation factors of why I wouldn't have chosen David, Gerald, or Seth, because I feel like all 3 of them would come into the company culture and would be like a liver transplant, an organ transplant, and it would be difficult for them to really be taken in. And if they weren't taken in properly, then they could cause multiple people in the company to fall with them.
That was the reason for which I chose Seth rather than David, Gerald, or Sonia, because the culture of his company is the closest one to that of RSH. So there are less things that would be changing in his life that could justify his performance to fall.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, he's coming from a much smaller company, so she couldn't have, I don't know if she could feel the pressure about that. and this could damage her performance.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that generally, I mean, if we're doing process of elimination, right? So let's say, we're the, we're having a post-interview meeting where we kind of all give our input, which is what we're doing. And at some point, you usually do some kind of process of elimination, like who can we kind of cross off pretty easily. And based on what you guys are saying, seems like we could probably eliminate Gerald and David.
Yeah.
Would anybody disagree with that? For narrowing it down. Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely.
Interesting. I'm just looking at my here from from the other classes I've done, and that's typically what everyone's done is their first pass. They've kind of eliminated Gerald and David, and they've come down to Sonia, Seth, and Rena, and again very similar reasoning in terms of why these three would be there towards the end. Any other? Okay, so I'm gonna try to let me get rid of. I'm just gonna get rid of the share. Okay. Any other thoughts? Anything else we haven't talked about the candidates? Particularly the final three. That,
well, I
we
just want to mention with that the salary is I think that like with Rena being at the very bottom with 0.3 million of salary, I think that makes a whole lot more extra room for RSH, for that extra money they're not spending with salary. So that's all the better for them. But then if Rena ever threatens to leave, they have that $1.2 million to work with every year. I assume that's when they're doing the salary to help convince Rena to stay with the company because she was only starting off making $300,000. So if they jump her salary and make $200,000 extra, that's going to be a big jump because another company is probably not going to start her off at $1.5 million. And so, I mean, I think that's a big advantage that RSH would have in order to keep Rena with the company if she threatens to leave due to money.
Right.
I agree. I think that goes into the idea that the Harvard Business Study talked about taking people and creating stars instead of hiring stars. Is they can use that leeway to retain her after they train her. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's and I like the. Perhaps there's a sports analogy you can draw in. Forgive me, Jackson, I'm going to use an American football analogy, but if you follow the National Football League, the New England Patriots are known for taking, they usually don't bring in a star, or they'll bring in someone that's either failed or not done well somewhere else and kind of develop them into a star. And then you've seen other teams, they'll stack their payroll and they'll bring in stars, but they don't mesh as a team. And kind of like the Harvard Business Review, article that just because someone was successful one place, not successful somewhere else, whether it's the culture, the resources, or what have you. Anyway, so next question. Let's talk about, we talked about last week, let's talk about politics and how they apply here. I'm getting some of the names mixed up, but is it Stevens, the hiring manager, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
He's the research manager.
Yeah, he's a research manager. Right. And was it his boss and like Rena, correct?
I think it was Rena's boss, and I think that he is Stephen's direct report.
Yeah. Okay, so looking at Stephen, I'm looking at kind of the politics. How do the politics play in here in terms of what Stephen or even Stephen's boss or the person that the person being hired, whoever's selected, who they report to. Let's talk about some of those implications and how that will affect the hiring decision.
I don't quite remember what they said about Rena that was so negative, except the fact that he just kept saying that he wanted to find somebody to take Peter's place. And he wanted him to hire someone. I don't remember him necessarily saying Rena was the bad. I don't know if anyone could tell me kind of where it was. I just want to kind of get an idea.
I think you're right. I don't think it was so much about what Rena lacked, but what they were looking for in the next person. And again, I can't remember where it was either, but how.
Okay, so
I mean,
there's a part where it says.
Go ahead.
Where it just says that they're anxious to replace Peter with someone more high powered than Rena Shea. Rena Shea still sometimes relies on the advice of more senior analysts in the technology group. And so I guess that was kind of, and it says that he's had, I'm happy with her work overall, but I've had mixed reviews about her. Some of the sales force thinks she has to be more assertive when she presents her reports, but others have commented that she's very knowledgeable about the industry. But yeah, I don't know.
This is Stephen saying this, right? I found that quote.
So this is Stephen, and then he goes on to say that he's kind of curious what Craig Robinson would say. So let's see if it says anything below it.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily seeing anything except for really him just saying like we need to fill the position quick.
Yeah.
I think that if we are to create stars, one thing that would be essential is training and development. And John McNair is described as someone who has little faith in development. So what I think hiring Rena would do for the company's culture would be that if we're successful in doing that, like we could even use the difference, her salary from that of other potential hires to train and develop her. And this would increase the company's faith in training and development. Mm-hmm. And we could produce more stars.
Yeah. No, so I think James, right? You asked me, who would I vote for, right? Or who would I select? And so I think it's a good time to tell you. So here's what I would do, and I think we're looking at these three, right? And I would select Sonia. And here's my reasoning is I think she has a lot of upside in terms of growth potential. If I looked at her and Seth, I think Seth in my mind would be too much of a risk again, and kind of leaning on the other Harvard Business Review article. And so I think overall, Sonia, with her upside and then kind of her salary, she would probably fit in well. I mean, she would fit in well just kind of salary-wise. And then what I would do with Rena, I would create a development plan for her. She, she got some specific feedback about maybe you're not as assertive as we'd like you to be. And clearly things that she does well, but that she could improve on. I create a development plan for her, and like you said, Jackson, some kind of a training development for her to kind of grow her in the company. And then finally, and I wouldn't say this is my top reason, but from a diversity standpoint, having someone like Sonia in her role, I mean, it couldn't hurt versus hiring someone maybe that's like maybe more like others in the organization. Again, wouldn't be at the top of my list, but that would be a box I would say, that she would check. But again, I think you find through this exercise, again, everyone kind of had their pluses and their minuses, right? And that I think just the discussion we've kind of, you kind of weigh the pros and cons of each decision. If there's anything I've learned is that, hiring is not an exact science. I've seen people hired that maybe didn't do very well in the interview, or you didn't think they were going to do very well, and they become superstars. And then others that knocked it out of the park during the recruitment process and then fall flat on their face, when they get there. So just something else to think about. But again, James, in answer to your question, that's who I would have selected.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you read my paper then.
I picked that same one. I said that Sonia I would give the job to. So I don't know how many people did out of us. Jackson, who did you pick?
One of you did. Who was it?
Seth. Jackson picked Seth, I think.
Yeah.
And then Laren, who'd you pick?
I picked Rena.
Okay. Yeah, so I did Sonia because of basically her interview was stellar out of all of theirs. I've been in HR for like a year, so I kind of like have heard interviews over and over and over and over again. And it's pretty much the same thing, but hers really stuck out to me compared to the others. She asked the right kind of questions. She totally she impressed me in the way that she was going to come into a big company not really knowing what was going to happen, but she definitely had the ideals that she wanted it to be a team-based. She didn't really talk about compensation, but she did ask one question about what it would be like, and she kind of got an eye-opener that she deserves more as a worker in her job. And anyways, so I just figured that she would be probably the best for the company in all aspects, financially, culturally, and everything. So
good. Well, thanks for sharing that, Cassidy. And welcome.
Yeah, sorry, today is just, anyways, yes.
That's okay. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
We get that. All right, any other, I just want to make sure, anything else we might want to cover?
I kind of want to mention one other thing with Rena.
Sure.
With that, I know before she was getting advice from other senior analysts and all that stuff, she maybe didn't show great things in being a leader. But in my previous experience, when I was hired as assistant manager at the Foot Locker here in Idaho Falls a while back, I'm not working there currently right now, but beforehand, I was just as a regular employee there, I was always looking for other people, getting advice and stuff like that. But once that management position came, I took that jump to get out of my comfort zone to become better for that position. And so with Rena's eagerness to always improve, I think that she would kind of be the same of how she would take that jump, and rather than asking for other senior or advice from the seniors, she would kind of take it upon herself and do that herself rather than go to others for that. I mean, she'd probably ask for their thoughts and all of that on it, but I think she would kind of be better at that position by always being eager.
See, I thought the same about Sonia though too.
Yeah, with her previous job. But yeah, just because somebody doesn't fit the exact needs of that position, when they are given a promotion or when they are given any type of advancement, I think they are willing to take the next jump to better themselves to become more fit for that job.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Sorry. I was going to say that, that's why I didn't really like the other interviews with the other guys or gentlemen, because they seemed like they, didn't really have a place for growth or learning at all. And based off of the article we were reading about how you want to hire stars or people who are going to become stars in your company rather than right off the bat. And it's like, I just didn't really like the feel of the other interviews compared to Sonia's, I would say, and a couple others. But most of the time, the people who have been in the industry for a while already had expectations of compensation and like, this is what I deserve. This is how I want my job to run. This is how, basically self-managing themselves. Whereas Sonia or some other people would kind of come in and be like, well, where can I improve? How can I help the company? How can you help me be a better person type thing or worker rather than expecting things to happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. So kind of, Lauren, going back to your, and I appreciate you fighting for Rena, way to go. But so just something else for everyone to consider. There's that saying, so, when you're making big decisions, and, we're talking about hiring right here, right?
Yeah.
I think I've heard the saying, the devil that you know versus the devil that you don't. So we could say, and again, maybe devil isn't the right word, but I think you understand why they use that term. But Rena, obviously everyone knows Rena, right? She works there. She has history. They've seen her work. The challenge that you have with the other four, or even if you're just looking at Seth and Sonia, is you're making potentially a, $1 million decision based on kind of two things. The first would be, I'm going to guess here, I'm trying to remember all the interviews, maybe 2 to 4 hours of interviews, right? They've talked to, maybe 2 to 5 if they talk to a whole bunch of people, and then feedback from others, right?
Yeah.
Versus, how many years has Rena been at RSH?
3 years.
3 years. Okay, versus 3 years of track record. So then the question you have to ask yourself, does that count for anything? And in my mind, that's kind of a real consideration because, again, you're basing a hiring decision off of 2 to 3 rounds of interviews and feedback. Not that those interviews aren't valuable, but, and hopefully they took them to lunch or something because, it's always good to get someone outside of an interviewing situation just to see how they react and, maybe a little personal side of it. But, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that's the most valuable source right there is previous track records. The other candidates might have good track records with other companies, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a good track record with RSH. Whereas with Rena, she's shown a pretty good track record in the previous 3 years. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to continue that way with the advancement in the position, but just the comfort knowing that she's had a good track record that previous 3 years, I think makes it pretty valuable.
Yeah, I think that was also the whole reason why, we got to see a bunch of the outside sources that he went to before having the interview in the first place, which is what you should be doing is first doing your background check on these people and then setting up an interview. Because if there's bad things from the company that they're working with already, or people who they're working with think that they're a negative person, then most of the time that is going to reflect into their next job. So, people change, but people also don't change. So it's kind of evident, but yeah.
No, that's a good point, Cassidy. And you would think, because he did engage a headhunting firm, to me, that's kind of foundational, right? They hopefully, I can't remember the name of the guy or the firm, but that they would have done all that due diligence before even presenting a name, right? So, yeah, and that's why you pay a headhunting firm is to not only find someone, but to vet them out, make sure that they, check all the boxes and, are qualified to do the job. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, good. Great discussion. Any other final comments? Anyone has? So, this is an interesting case, but I always ask this question at the end of our discussion, and I'll ask it here. Although it might be a little tricky, but I always like to tie the gospel and what we learn, to our lesson material. So, any gospel or spiritual applications that you guys can think of here?
Well, the first one that comes to my mind is pretend we're Steven and RSH is our own life. We're looking at people who we want to be around, who's going to be the benefit for our life better than anyone else. I mean, you don't necessarily go through interviews or anything like that to pick your friends, but you kind of have a general idea of how people are, what they're like. And so the ones that we feel are going to be the best for us, whereas the best for your business, are the ones that are going to help improve us the most. And so I think it's always that we have to pick the good candidates for ourselves, just as we do have to pick for the company for the betterment of ourselves and our company, I guess.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to my mind is about calling people to serve in the ward and in the stake. The handbook of instructions tell us that we have to choose people and take their needs into consideration. And I think the process is a little like that too, though we rely a little more on the spirit.
I think so. This reminds me of devotional actually that happened this week because I am in Rexburg. And at devotional, they were having a discussion about, the speaker said, close your eyes, picture a table of people who love and care about you and whatnot and all this stuff. And then he was like, okay, open your eyes. And he's like, was God at that table? And they were like, oh my gosh, no, I forgot about God. Oh my goodness. So then he was like, hey, close your eyes, do it again. And it kind of helped you weed out all the negative people in your life who you realize don't love and care about you and are just there as, acquaintances, friends, whatever they are. But it helped me realize who I want at my table and who I need to get rid of in my life for being negative towards any of my decisions or directions I'm going. And that's what kind of this is. It's like, who's going to be positive for the company? Who's going to be negative for the company? Weed out those people, and then you'll get the right answer. So,
good.
I just want to kind of piggyback off of what everybody said. I mean, I feel like those are all really good ways that we can integrate this into a gospel setting. But I really like what Cassidy said about being positive and negative, because that was one of the things Stephen said. I feel like he pointed out is that you can't have negative people. Like if they say too much negative things about their past company, then you are almost guaranteed that they're going to bring negativity with them. And I think that's something that we need to learn how to recognize in our own life. And we don't necessarily have to avoid people that are negative, but try to teach them how to be positive, so to speak. And because, those people are most likely the people that need the gospel the most, but we shouldn't let them become an integral part of our life to the point where we become negative ourselves. We need to try to get rid of that negativity before we completely allow them to come in. So
yeah, no, I like that. I like that, James. You remind me of, or you and Cassie remind me of, the 7 Habits book. The first habit of being proactive about, there's a stimulus and there's a response, right? And he says that who's the response, right? And so if if we respond negatively, well, we can't blame anyone else because, we own that, right? So I think that's what what you're saying is, hey, it's up to us, how we choose to behave and conduct ourselves. My thought on that is, I don't know if you guys remember, it was last general conference. It was so President Nelson's first one where he conducted, and I think he was talking about choices and making decisions. And he said, I liked what he said. He said, first we need information, and then second we need to get inspiration. And I just like how practical that sounds, right? So in any decision, so for hiring, obviously we need information, right? We've talked a lot about that, gathering information through interviewing, background checks, and what have you, our own observations. And then after that, seeking inspiration. And obviously we can do that a number of ways. I mean, just pondering or thinking about things, right? That's, to me, that's the way of getting inspiration. But anyway, that's a thought I thought of when, asking the question about how we can apply this to the gospel. So, a great job, guys. Like I said, I love these meetings. There's always good discussion. Hopefully you guys have got something out of it. So thank you. And so let's go ahead and wrap up with the closing prayer. Would someone like to volunteer and offer the closing prayer?
I can. I'll do it.
Hey, thanks, Laren.
Yeah. Our Father in heaven, we are thankful for this day, and we're thankful for the opportunity that we had to meet as a group and with our instructor and go over this case study. And we're so very thankful for this opportunity that we had to go to such a wonderful school online and on campus and be able to get an education. And we're thankful for the gospel principles that we have kind of learned from this case study. And please help that we can try to apply it into our lives. And also please help that we'll be able to be watched and protected and be able to do the things that we have hoped to do this semester. And we love thee. We say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Hey, thanks, everyone. Great job. Have a nice week.
Bye.
Okay.
Well, thank you. See ya.
Yeah.